Hey, I've just seen that bloke from Narrowboat Diaries.
Nah, I'm more of a celebrity go barging fan myself. Welcome back to the Northwich Drydock. It's been a while since my last video, so let's just recap what's happened. I've had the hull scraped away so we can see what's left of it, but it did pass its survey and we only found a few things that we needed to keep an eye on, such as this hole here. But it's fine, we can get this fixed with the help of the lovely people at Northwich Drydock Co, particularly Matt and Rebecca, who are just getting ready to paint the bottom of my boat. Here we go. There are two ways of blacking your boat. One, you do it yourself, or two, if you're lazy like me, you employ experts to do it for you. I don't believe on scrimping when it comes to the hull. Despite it being below the waterline, I want to have the toughest finish. So these are the steps that we're going to take. Step 1. Add some aluminium primer. So there's aluminium flakes within this paint that can go on surfaces that aren't completely bare, and it will provide the best anti-rust protection possible. Next, we slap on a 2-pack epoxy paint. 2-pack meaning 2 parts. So there's one is an epoxy resin, the other one is a hardener. And although that combination does create an incredibly tough layer of paint, it can get dulled by ultraviolet light. So the last coat to go on is a show coat to make everything look shiny. Well, now it's time for me to get my paintbrush out because I've been asked to put my boat's name up on this wall. And it's quite a privilege to put my boat's name next to all these other ones, especially some really well-known boats like Fuel Boat Halsall, who I bumped into early on in the year. They sold me some coal. It's great to finally actually buy something from them because I've always seen them just go past or missed my chance. So I'm going to put Naughty Lass up there in white paint because that's what I've got most of. It's just like normal emulsion paint really, nothing too fancy. It says undercoat. Oh dear. Well, we'll see how this goes. Adrenaline whilst painting this. A lot of pressure because you know all the other real boaters are going to see this. There it is, Naughty Lass's name in lights there on the wall of Northwich Drydock. I mean, I've done it in undercoat, so it's not going to last. I'm not too worried about how shoddy it looks. It literally looks like I've gone with a spray can and just tagged it. But yeah, quite cool, isn't it, I suppose? It all looks so good. Lovely glossy finish to it. And I've kept the anodes on because they're fine. So I've saved a bit of money there. The only problem is it's made the rest of the boat look quite tatty in terms of the paintwork. So I've got a job on this year to restore the rest of it, haven't I? But there's no rush, and canal time, isn't it? So I'll do it tomorrow. Fantastic, I'm so happy. Naughty Lass with a new coat of paint. Right, before we carry on, a little bit of business, because these videos are funded by Patreon, right? And I get people who send me money. Ridiculous, isn't it? And they join my Cranky Crew. So I'm going to add some people into the logbook, which shows that they are members. So here we go. We've got Olivia Brunetti, Mike Williamson, Gareth Rubian-Ling, I hope that's how you pronounce your name, Graham Pockley, and they're all going as Cranky Crew members. And then at Cranky Crew producers, Wayne Meehan and John Fetcho. Thank you so much for producing this vlog. I couldn't have done it without any of you. Right, this is the morning of which I have to leave this dock. I'm confident that I'll float again. I just don't know what's going to happen because I've never been in this situation before. With my boat out of water and the water suddenly coming back in again. I think if I was doing this on my own, I'd be absolutely bricking it, but thankfully I've got this wonderful team behind me here from the Northwich Drydock who are all getting the ropes ready, making sure the boat stays afloat. You don't have to stay on board, you can get off the boat, you don't have to be here, but I'm just mad. And I wanted to experience it from this angle. And then just like going through a lock, things suddenly get a bit quieter once the water's at a certain level. Quite an eerie sensation now, and that's the boat starting to rock once more because it's going to be floating again. So yeah, I can start to feel it bob about, but we are secure. There's lots of ropes attached to make sure everything's fine. The crane here is actually to lift the gate up so I can back out that way. It doesn't open like a normal lock gate. But I think it's also used to help winch up anything that's in the lock as well. It's at this point that some boats might find that they list to one side. Perhaps if they've had a lot of welding done, like a lot of metal added and they haven't adjusted the ballast. Or in my case, if I've filled up the toilet tank while living on board. What's the worst thing that could happen? That wouldn't ever, but...
Yeah, your boat could sink.
Yeah.
It's one of the great things about dry docks over lifting boats is that they're so gentle. So presuming that you floated when you came in, it's a very kind process because the boat sits very evenly. So whereas when you're picking them up with a crane, you're basically picking them up at one point, and they're up in the air. Whereas you're always either floating or sat on the sand. So dry docks are very low risk from that perspective.
Right, what Matt is doing over there is he's basically lifted up the gate and he's going to park it out the way, just so I can reverse the boat out into the river and then turn round and carry on the journey, which basically takes us back to the boatyard that way, but I've just got to go round the corner. That gate there is about 10 tons, so that crane is doing all the work. Right, this is the moment of truth. Embarrassing if this doesn't actually work. There we go. Yeah, we're all good, we're all good. Thanks to Rick here, I can get through this lock with no problems at all. Hunt's Lock and the surrounding area on this navigation is perhaps the most interesting because it highlights how much change has happened over the years. The navigation was opened in 1732 with 11 locks, and since then it's actually been whittled down to 5, but the capacity of those locks has increased greatly. From this view we can see that the one on the left, this was created for seafaring vessels and at a later date, between 1870 and 1900. And it has 3 sets of lock gates. There's some new lock gates been added to the one I'm going through, and that was back in January and February time this year. This guy here did some of the welding on my boat. Cheers. All right, Ruben. Right. Matt's operating the paddle on this lock. He's had special training, but for most of us, we're not allowed to use these locks. It has to be either booked in or you arrive at the right time when the lock keeper's actually on site. So at the moment their schedule is 10 till midday, they break for lunch, and then it's 12:30 till 2 p.m. Anything outside of that, from 8 a.m. up until about 4 p.m, you've got to book the day before. So it's not something you can do on your own, this one. Right, I'm being followed out of the lock by Matt, who's skippering his own working boat with the butty attached to it. Now we're going underneath the viaduct that I was out on hard standing on in the dry dock. Here it is. That's where I've come from. See, so I've gone out on the river, round back into the lock, and then down back onto the navigation. And now I'm just going to find a mooring back here in the boatyard. So there's a few more jobs that I want to get done to the boat. Most of these boats are owned by the people in the boatyard who actually work there. They're sort of custodians in a way. They're just keeping these boats in service, keeping them working, keeping them afloat. So that's quite a successful trip. We've gotten out of the dry dock and I've made my way with my boat all the way down to a nice mooring, still on the Hunt's Island, because I want to get a few more things done, like fit some new doors, some new hatch doors. So I look forward to showing you those in the next video. But for now, it's time for Pub of the Week. Oh, I love a good fire. Well, yeah, it's not a pub, but we've sort of just created our own little gathering here, where we've got Rebecca and Matt on the right, and then Matt's dad, Dave, who I actually met before at a Pub of the Week in the past. This pub is a micro pub that was right next to a lock that he was the lock keeper for on the River Trent. I don't know if it's still running as it is today, but it'll still be worth a visit, I can imagine. So this is Pub of the Week, a fire right outside, well, right in the middle of it all really, aren't we? So here we go, Pub of the Week! Cheers!
Yeah, we're socially distanced.
Oh yeah, by the way, we are socially distanced. We've got 6 people from different households, something like that.
We'll see.
It's all kosher, don't worry.